Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Emmy, and as you can tell from the title of the video, in today's video I'm going to be talking about a new Bible that I just recently acquired, and it is the Navarre Bible, and in particular Romans and Galatians. So this is basically a study Bible, and if you're familiar with the Ignatius Catholic Study Bible, you know how in the beginning they all came in different books. So basically the Navarre Bible is like that. It's not compiled into one book or into one Bible, but they do have the Reader's Omnibus edition. So this one, this edition right here is they call the standard edition. And basically with this one, it comes in different books. Like the New Testament has several books, and so is the Old Testament. So the Old Testament is about 7 books, starting off with the Pentateuch up to the Minor Prophets. You know what? I'll show this page right now. Right? The Old Testament, and then the New Testament, the Standard Edition is right there. The Gospels are separately done, and then there's Acts of the Apostles, Romans and Galatians, blah blah blah, up to Revelation. But they do have, like I said, the Reader's Omnibus edition, which is basically a lot of the books compiled. So for that one, they have the Gospels and Acts, the letters of St. Paul, and then the Revelation, Hebrews, and Catholic letters. So that's just the New Testament. So for the Old Testament, there's no Omnibus edition yet. But yeah, so anyways, this is what I'm going to be talking about. And you're probably wondering, oh my gosh, she got another Bible. So that's what my kids always say. They're like, do you really need another Bible? So what I'm going to be talking about is, I guess, I'll do a flip through first and talk to you guys about the contents. And then I'll also kind of compare it to the other study Bibles that I have anyways, and like this one here, the Ignatius Study Bible, and then maybe answer the question, do you really need another study Bible or not? So yeah, so let's do the flip through right now. Okay, so this is the Navarre Bible, Romans and Galatians. So okay, so let's just talk about the technical stuff first. RSVCE is the translation, and the introductions and commentaries are by the theology staff of the University of Navarre, which is in Spain, I believe. And this Bible, aside from the RSVCE translation, it also has the Latin translation at the end. So that's what's really cool about this Bible, and you guys will see in the flip through what else it has. So also, just to say, I added this myself. This is the ribbon I add to all my Bibles and a lot of my books. It's just like a cheap bookmark ribbon that you can get at Muji. I'll link it down below in case you're interested. So yeah, so let us just talk about the... Alright, okay, here you go. So Navarre Bible, St. Paul's letters to Romans and Galatians, and the RSVCE New Vulgate with a commentary by the members of the Faculty of Theology of the University of Navarre, and published by right there, Scepter Publishers in New York, and then Four Courts Press. And these are the editorial committee, and then the volumes in the series that I talked about in the intro, where it talks about the Standard Edition, and then the Old Testament, and then the Reader's Omnibus, and then there's also the single volume large format New Testament, which I have seen in our local bookstore, like our local Catholic bookstore. So that's pretty cool. So copyright information right here with the Nihil Obstat imprimatur, and then the contents. So there are maps, which is not really a lot, but you will see it. And then the preface and preliminary notes, abbreviations, introductions to the letters of St. Paul, introductions to the St. Paul's letters to the Galatians and Romans, and then the actual Bible text, letter of Paul to the Romans, letter of Paul to the Galatians, and then the New Vulgate text in Romans and Galatians, explanatory notes, headings added to the biblical text, sources quoted in the commentary. Okay. So this is the only page with maps, really. So So it shows the journeys of St. Paul. So very basic, but it's still, I always like maps, so it's always a plus for me if there's maps in the Bible. So preface and preliminary notes. So basically just explaining about the commentary, who wrote them, and then the RSVCE translation and the Latin text. So in case you're interested, this volume also carries the official Latin version of the New Testament in the Editio Typica Altera of the New Vulgate, Vatican City, 86. Okay, preface, abbreviations. I forgot to say, I first heard about the Navarre Bible from Father Columba in the Call to More YouTube channel. A few years back, he did a video on what are the 4 best study Bibles, and this was one of them. And I've always wanted to get it, but they're not easily available in our local bookstore. So I just decided to order this one just to see if I would like it or not. And Romans is one of my favorite books, so I just thought I'd start up with this. So yeah, so we start off with the essays. So these essays are really what makes this Bible amazing. So the introduction to the letter St. Paul. So it has a brief intro on his biography, I guess. So yeah, so I just did this tabs here. I just put that there myself. And then after that, conversion in early years as Christian, and then his great missionary journeys, first imprisonment. So this is really so amazing. So I'll talk about it more later on. But yeah, so this one, it even has a chart of his here. Okay, establishing the dates in St. Paul's life. So this is a wonderful chart right here, starting from when he was born to the second Roman imprisonment and death by martyrdom. And then the actual introduction to the letters. So basically it talks, this is just a brief introduction, I guess, to all the letters of St. Paul, not just the Romans and Galatians. So it talks about the theme of the letters, and then the and it's basically grouped into different I shouldn't say themes, but I guess the time that he wrote it. So it starts off with the letter to the Thessalonians, and then the great letters given to Galatians 1 and 2, Corinthians, and then Romans, and then more about the different talking about the individual letters themselves, and then talks about the captivity letters, which were the letter to Philemon, Colossians. I always say that so weird. Colossians or Colossians, Ephesians, and most likely Philippians. And then it talks about the individual letters, like I said, and the pastoral letters, and these are Timothy and then Titus. Letter to the Hebrews. Yeah, so it is so, like, this mini essays are really so amazing. Even though you know, some of you, if you're an academic and you know, like you're really familiar with letters to St. Paul already, then this is still a great kind of like refresher. But for me, this is just really like the first time I'm really delving more into St. Paul's letters, like the individual letters. So it's really it's so good. And then here it also has an introduction to the theology of St. Paul, which is like really probably one of my favorite parts as well. So it talks about the human life without Christ, and then basically what St. Paul thinks of each of these topics, like sin, the flesh, death, the law, and then redeem mankind, and salvation in Christ. And that's also broken down into sub themes. Like, it's really so good. Like, this little, I shouldn't say little because they're actually full-blown essays, but they're worth like reading. Like, I think one of them the man's conversion. This is the one I probably read a few times already. And then theology of the resurrection of Christ. And then man's conversion talks about justification and then, you know, with baptism and all that. And then faith, the content of faith, demands of faith. Then also talks about Christian life in Christ. Like, it's just jam-packed with information, and these are not even the commentary notes on the Romans and Galatians itself. It's literally just like the intro, right? So church, and then also broken down into sub-themes. And then now we go into the introduction to St. Paul's letters to Galatians and Romans. So yeah, just all these essays before the actual thing, it's really so good. Like, that's all I can say. I just keep saying it's so good, because it is. It's so, like, I don't know, it's just so really just jam-packed with information. So yeah, so okay, here the context which the letters were written. So it talks about Galatians and then Romans, and then the recipients, Christians of Galatia, Christian community in Rome, and then the content and structure of the letters. So it goes into the literary style, and then also broken down into Galatians and Romans. And yeah, so now we actually go into the book of Romans here now, and this has the notes. So introduction. So basically the way it's set up is you have the text on top and then the commentary at the bottom, and as you guys can see, it's really quite detailed. That, like, yeah, just the text itself is right there, just a tiny part, and then all these are notes. So it's pretty much like the, I know with the Ignatius, yeah, it's pretty much set up like that. So here's the text from Romans, and then a commentary. Okay, I hope you guys can see okay, and I hope I'm making sense. I'm just really excited about this Bible. Okay, so yeah, so it's really just laid out like that. So just the notes themselves are like, literally, they're like mini essays, right? So a lot of them are verse by verse, like what you would find in other Bible commentaries. And then in some parts, there'll be a combined, like, just talking about the general theme, like here for Romans, chapter 1, verses 18 to 32. So there's like a general info about that, and then it will go into a more detail, going into into the first chapter, just the verse 18, right? So like I said, like, yeah, it talks about a general theme for a big chunk of it, and then breaks it down. Okay. So yeah, as you guys can see, some of the commentaries I haven't read yet, because it's really, I kind of have to slow down myself when I read this, because there's so much information in the commentary. So Romans 8, one of my favorites. So yeah. So yeah, like I said, I know I'm repeating myself. I just want to like really show you guys how the book is laid out. So here is a text and then the commentary. Okay, and then we go into Galatians, and Galatians is laid out the same way. So the Galatians I haven't actually read at all. Oh, that's the invoice. Okay, and then now here after the Galatians here, and then now we go into the Latin, the New Vulgate text, starting with Romans. So that's really my only small con about this, is that, like, look how tiny the Latin is. So I really, like, I will have to wear my reading glasses when I read this. Paulus servus Christi Jesu. Yeah, so I don't know how small that font is, so. But it is great to have it there, right? And then here is the Galatians, Epistola ad Galatas. And after that, you have the explanatory notes. And these are the RSVCE notes. Not necessarily, like, not in the commentary, but yeah. Just talking about the actual translation notes. And then the headings added to the biblical text. Sources quoted in the Navarre Bible, New Testament commentary. So all the church fathers that are mentioned, and popes, church documents. Yeah, and that is it. Okay. All right, so now the question is, if you already have a few other commentaries, you really need another one. And okay, so what I say to that is that yes, I actually honestly believe you can never have enough Bible commentaries, because first of all, like, all the authors, even though they use the same sources, right, like even for their research and stuff, there's always a different interpretation, depending on who the author is, right? So let's say you already have the Ignatius Study Bible. I mean, obviously you don't need all of them, right? Like, it's actually maybe sometimes better if you can just focus on one, maybe, and then really study that, and then you can go into other commentaries. But I think it's great, like, if you're like reading like with me Romans, right? Like, it's great to have other, like, more than one source to really get a full picture of the actual book itself, right? So, and the commentaries are obviously different, but there will be similarities, because like I said, especially if there's like a certain theme that is pretty much obvious, right? So obviously all the commentaries would mention that. So okay, let's go to Romans. So with the Ignatius Study Bible, for example, right, for the Romans, the introduction itself is just one page, just because of how it's, this is, first of all, it's a compilation of the whole New Testament, right? So I think with the omnibus version of the Navarre, I think they did cut down some of the stuff that is in the standard edition. So for this one, like I said, it's only one page in terms of the, one and a half, I guess, for the intro. But look at the notes on the Ignatius, right? So it's also, like I said, pretty much laid out like how it is here, with a big chunk of the commentary here and then the text there. And like I said, obviously there'll be similarities with the commentaries. Like, let's see here. There's one here that I actually did mark. Oh, the obedience of faith. I think this one, for example, the obedience of faith in Romans chapter 1 verse 5. This one talk more about it being two bookends, with the obedience of faith, obedience that is faith, or the obedience that springs from faith. The expression stands like two bookends at the beginning and in the Romans, right? So that mentions that there, and I don't think that was in here. So just little, obviously, like little changes, like not changes, but you know what I'm saying, like there's like, just because the author here, I don't know if it's Scott Hahn who wrote the Romans one, but yeah, so that one wasn't mentioned here. But there's also stuff that's mentioned here that is not in here, like, let's see,
I can't remember now.
oh, like here, right? Because these are more like little essays, like I said, right? But here it's really like the verse by verse notes. They're pretty straightforward, but here they almost seem like little essays. So like here it talks about the Romans 1 sorry, Romans chapter 1 verse 1. It's a longer info where it talks about the general theme of 1 to 15, and then there's a breakdown of 1 to 2, and then after that there's a more breakdown of just doing 1 to 1, right? As for this one, it literally goes chapter 1 verse 1, and then chapter 1 verse 2, right? And then But they, like I said, there's also similarities, obviously, because like we're here talking about Romans chapter 1 verses 3 to 4. They talk about how they're both the St. Paul was quoting from a Christological formulary hymn, and that's also mentioned in here. So gosh, I hope that made sense what I just said. But yeah, so do you actually need, if you already have the Ignatius, do you need the Navarre? I say yes if you have extra money, just because first of all the beginning essays in this standard edition is so good. Oh my gosh, I can't really talk. Oh my gosh, what's that expression? Anyways, I just can't hype it enough. Like, it's just really that good. So yeah, so I do think you need them all, right? So my goal now is actually get as much of this as I can whenever I have the extra funds, maybe to get the standard edition for sure. Because the omnibus, like I said, I think they did cut off some of the parts to make it fit into like just one book. So I'm really hoping I can get my hands more on the standard edition. And let's say you have like something like this, which is more like the general beginner's level commentary. This is also great because if you're just starting out, I think something like this is the best place to start in terms of Bible study, because for Romans here it has an intro as well, and then authorship and dating and stuff like that, and then it also breaks down the chapters, but not as detailed as what you would find in the Ignatius Study Bible or the Navarre. So yeah, so okay, what else am I supposed to talk about? I think that is about it. Oh my gosh, I hope it made sense what I was saying. But yeah, like I just can't oh my gosh, why can't I think of that expression? Anyways, I really highly recommend the Navarre Bible just from this one. I'm assuming they're all like that. If this is just a taste of the standard edition, yeah, like I'm just really so impressed with the information here. Yes, so that is it. Oh my goodness, as always, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to comment down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.